3 days before his wedding, Chinedu began to have the same dream. He stood alone in a silent field. In front of him was a fresh grave. On the grave was his bride's name. And inside the grave, Adaeze lay in her white wedding dress, eyes closed, as if she had already been buried. The third night she spoke. Her lips did not move, but he heard her voice clearly. "If you marry me, I will die before sunset." Chinedu woke up sweating, his heart racing in the darkness. He wanted to pray, he wanted to fast, but by sunrise, his family had already made another plan. And that plan would lead them to a decision that nearly cost Adaeze's life. Chinedu was not a man who believed in dreams easily. He was calm, educated, and known in the village as someone who thought carefully before acting. When he first saw the strange dream, he laughed about it in the morning and told himself it was only wedding stress. After all, his marriage to Adaeze was only 3 days away. There were many responsibilities on his mind: payments, guests arriving, decorations, family expectations. But that night, the dream returned. Again, he stood in that same empty field. Again, he saw the same grave. Again, he read Adaeze's name written on the wooden cross. This time, the wind blew softly, carrying dust across the ground. He tried to move closer, but his legs felt heavy. When he finally reached the grave and looked inside, Adaeze was there, dressed in the same white gown she planned to wear on their wedding day. Her face looked peaceful, too peaceful. Chinedu woke suddenly, breathing hard. His chest felt tight and sleep did not return easily. By morning, worry had started to grow inside him. He decided to tell his mother. At first, she listened quietly, but as soon as he finished, her face changed. She called his father immediately, and within minutes, the small sitting room filled with concerned voices. "This is not ordinary," his aunt said, shaking her head. "Dreams like this are warnings," another relative added. Chinedu raised his hand gently. "Please, let us not panic. I will pray about it. Maybe Adaeze and I should fast together. God will protect us." He truly believed this was the right step. He planned to visit his pastor that afternoon. But that night, the dream came again. This time, it was worse. The field was darker. The grave looked freshly dug, the soil still loose. When he stepped closer, he heard a faint sound. At first, he thought it was the wind. Then he realized it was Adaeze's voice. Soft, weak, coming from inside the grave. "Chinedu, if you marry me, I will die before sunset." He tried to shout her name, but no sound came out. He tried to dig her out with his hands, but the soil felt like stone. Suddenly, the ground began to close over the grave by itself. He woke up shouting. This time, his fear was real. By morning, the whole family already knew. Word spread quickly among relatives preparing for the wedding. Some whispered that the marriage date should be moved. Others warned that ignoring such dreams could bring disaster. Chinedu still resisted. "We will pray," he insisted. "God is greater than any dream." But his father shook his head firmly. "Prayer is good, but wisdom is also good. Sometimes God reveals danger so we can act." Before Chinedu could argue further, his uncle spoke up. "There is a spiritualist in the next town. He is known for seeing hidden things. Let us hear what he says first. After that, you can still pray." Chinedu did not like the idea. He had never trusted spiritualists. Something about it felt wrong to him. He wanted to rely on faith, not rituals. But the pressure from the family kept growing. His mother held his hand and said softly, "My son, what if this dream is true? What if something happens to Adaeze? Will you forgive yourself? That question stayed in his heart. By afternoon, against his own feelings, Chinedu agreed. The next morning, the entire family prepared to visit the spiritualist. As they left the compound, Chinedu felt a strange heaviness in his chest. A quiet voice inside him whispering that this decision might change everything. He did not know yet that the visit would lead them to a ritual no one in the village would ever forget.
The spiritualist did not ask Chinedu about his dream. Instead, the moment they entered his compound, the old man looked straight at Adaize and said, "You almost didn't make it here today." The room froze. Adaize felt a chill run down her spine. No one had spoken yet. No one had explained anything. Chinedu swallowed hard. For the first time since the dreams began, fear settled fully in his chest. Maybe this man truly knew something. The spiritualist shrine was smaller than Chinedu expected. It was not the dramatic place he imagined. No loud drums, no smoke, no crowd. Just a quiet mud house, faded mats on the floor, and shelves filled with calabashes, cowries, and old bottles. That simplicity strangely made it more unsettling. The old man motioned for Adaize to sit. He stared at her for a long time without speaking. Then he closed his eyes and began to rub his fingers slowly together, as if counting something invisible. Finally, he spoke softly. "Your husband has been shown the grave because death has already marked you." Adaize's breath caught. Chinedu quickly shook his head. "Sir, please, we believe in prayer. We came only for advice." The old man calmly nodded. "Prayer is good," he said, "but when a snake is already inside the house, you don't only pray, you remove it." Silence filled the room. The spiritualist then asked a strange question. "Tell me," he asked, "have you noticed unusual delays, sudden fear, strange heaviness in your chest?" Adaize slowly nodded. She had indeed felt anxious these past days, but she thought it was only wedding nerves. The old man leaned forward. "The dream is not a warning," he said quietly. "It is a message. The bride's spirit has already been claimed. If nothing is done, she will die on the wedding day before sunset." Adaize's mother began to cry softly. Chinedu felt his throat tighten. He wanted to reject the words, to stand up and walk out, but the memory of the dream, the voice from the grave, would not leave his mind. He tried one last time. "Sir, please, can we fast? Can we pray for protection?" The old man looked at him with a calm but firm expression. "You can pray," he replied, "but prayer does not stop what has already been written, unless the sign is reversed." Chinedu's father spoke nervously. "What must we do?" The spiritualist's voice dropped lower. "She must be buried." The room erupted in shock. "Not permanently," he added quickly, "a symbolic burial. Before the wedding, she must enter the grave alive. The earth must cover her briefly, so death will believe she has already been taken. Only then will the mark leave her." Adaize stared at Chinedu in disbelief. Chinedu felt his stomach turn. This was exactly the kind of ritual he feared. "I don't like this," he said firmly. "This is too extreme." But the spiritualist shook his head slowly. "Young man," he said, "sometimes the medicine that saves a life is bitter." Outside the shrine, the argument began immediately. Adaize's mother was crying. "What if we ignore this and she dies?" she asked. Chinedu's uncle spoke urgently. "It is only for a few minutes. Many rituals are symbolic." Even Chinedu's own mother held his arm tightly. "My son, what if this man is right?" Chinedu felt trapped between logic and fear. He pulled Adaize aside. "Tell me honestly," he whispered, "are you comfortable with this?" Adaize's eyes filled with tears. "No," she said softly, "but I'm more afraid of dying on our wedding day." Those words broke something inside him. For the first time, the dream felt heavier than his doubts. He closed his eyes and sighed deeply. "If we do this," he said slowly, "it must be safe. Only for a few minutes. I will stand there myself." The families quickly agreed. The ritual would happen on the morning of the wedding, before the ceremony. As they prepared to leave, an old woman who sold firewood near the shrine quietly pulled Adaeze aside. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Daughter," she said, "be careful of men who promise to change destiny. Sometimes they create the danger themselves." Adaeze frowned. "What do you mean?" But before the woman could answer, a relative called Adaeze back to the car. The moment passed. The warning faded, and no one mentioned it again. That night, Chinedu could not sleep. He lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if he was protecting Adaeze or leading her into something worse. By dawn, the village was already buzzing with wedding excitement. But instead of heading to the church first, villagers gathered near a quiet piece of land behind Adaeze's family compound. A shallow grave had been dug. Fresh soil lay beside it. The white wedding dress waited inside the house, and as Adaeze stepped out wearing it, trembling, Chinedu realized something that made his heart pound. This was the same place he had seen in his dream.
Morning sunlight filled the compound, but there was no joy in the air. Instead of music and laughter, a strange silence followed Adaeze as she stepped outside in her white wedding dress. The dress was beautiful. Her smile was not. Women whispered prayers under their breaths. Men stood watching quietly. Behind the compound, the shallow grave waited. Fresh soil, wooden shovel, a white cloth beside it. Chinedu's hands trembled as he walked beside her. He whispered, "I'm here. Nothing will happen, I promise." Adaeze nodded, but her fingers tightened his. The spiritualist arrived calmly, as if this were an ordinary ceremony. He instructed them. Adaeze should lie inside only briefly. The white cloth would cover her face. A small amount of soil would be poured. Prayers would be said. Then she would be lifted out immediately. "Do not panic," he warned. "Fear can interrupt the ritual." Adaeze stepped into the grave slowly, holding her dress carefully. For a moment, she hesitated. The hole felt colder than she expected. Chinedu leaned down, his voice shaking. "Just a few minutes," he said softly. She lay down. The cloth covered her gently. The first handful of soil fell. Thump. Adaeze shut her eyes tightly. More soil followed, lightly tapping the cloth. The spiritualist began to chant quietly. Villagers bowed their heads. Chinedu watched every second, counting in his mind. 1 minute. 2. Then suddenly, he heard something. Not from above, from inside the grave. A faint movement. Before he could react, the spiritualist raised his hand sharply. "No one move," the man ordered. "The spirit is leaving her body." The chanting grew louder. Chinedu felt uneasy. Something was wrong. The air felt tense, unnatural. He stepped forward. "I think that's enough," he said. "Let's bring her out." The spiritualist blocked him. "Wait," he insisted. "If you interrupt now, the danger will return." Chinedu hesitated. Just one more moment, he thought. Then it happened. A sudden muffled sound came from beneath the cloth. A struggle. Chinedu's heart jumped. "That's it," he shouted. "Dig her out." Ignoring the spiritualist, he grabbed the shovel and began clearing the soil with frantic hands. Others rushed to help. They pulled away the soil, lifted the cloth, and froze. The grave was empty. For a moment, no one spoke. Adaeze was gone. The cloth lay flat, the space beneath it, hollow. A scream broke the silence. Her mother collapsed. People began shouting, running, searching for her in the compound, calling her name. Chinedu stood motionless, unable to breathe. "How?" he whispered. The spiritualist stepped back slowly, raising his hands. "I warned you," he said. "Her spirit has crossed. No one must question sacred things." But Chinedu's shock quickly turned into anger. "No," he said, voice shaking. "This is not spiritual. Someone took her." Without another word, he ran toward the road, scanning desperately. Minutes passed like hours. Then one of the young boys from the village came running. "I saw a van," he shouted. "It drove away fast behind the trees." Chinedu didn't wait. He jumped on his motorcycle and sped down the narrow road, heart pounding, dust flying behind him. About 2 kilometers away, near an unfinished building, he spotted it, a white van, door slightly open. He stopped and ran forward. Inside, he heard a faint cry. "Adeze!" He pulled the door open. There she was, still in her wedding dress, hands tied, terrified, but alive. He quickly untied her and held her tightly as she burst into tears. "They planned it," she sobbed. "The spiritualist and the driver. They said wealthy brides are easy targets. They use dreams and rituals so no one suspects kidnapping." As the crowd bowed their heads in prayer, Adeze felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Before she could understand what was happening, the loose soil beside the shallow grave suddenly gave way. Hands shot out from a narrow tunnel hidden under the fresh earth and pulled her down hard. She tried to scream, but a rough hand covered her mouth, dragging her into the dark, tight passage. Panic filled her chest as her wedding gown scraped against the damp soil. "Stay quiet or you die here," one of the men whispered sharply into her ear. Trembling, she was pushed forward through the tunnel and pulled out through another hidden opening a few meters away behind the gathering. A van waited there, engine humming softly. The door slid open, she was shoved inside, and within seconds the vehicle drove off, while the prayer continued, and no one knew the bride was gone. Chinedu felt cold rage rise inside him. The dream, the ritual, it had all been arranged. The spiritualist hadn't predicted danger. He was the danger. Police were called immediately. By evening, the spiritualist and his accomplices were arrested. Investigations later revealed they had attempted similar kidnappings in other towns, always using fear, prophecy, or rituals to control families. 2 weeks later, the village gathered again. This time there was no grave, only music, laughter, and a grateful silence when Adeze walked down the aisle, alive, smiling, stronger than before. As Chinedu held her hands, he whispered, "I thought the dream meant death." Adeze smiled softly. "Maybe it did," she replied, "but not mine. It was the death of our fear." Sometimes the grave in the dream is not showing the future. Sometimes it is warning you to open your eyes, because the greatest danger is not fate. It is the people who use fear to control your choices.
Fear can push people into dangerous decisions, but wisdom, courage, and clear thinking protect us. Never allow prophecy, pressure, or tradition to replace truth and discernment. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next powerful African tale. Because sometimes the stories we hear are closer to real life than we think. See you in the next story.